Remember when diner food meant something? When the coffee was always hot, the waitress knew your order by heart, and a stack of pancakes actually tasted like someone cared enough to make them, right? Those days are not just fading, they are gone, and the chains that built empires on your trust are counting on you not to notice. If you grew up in the 80s or 90s, diners were more than restaurants. They were landmarks, the place your family stopped on road trips, the booth where you nursed a breakup over eggs and hash browns at 2 in the morning, the corner where shift workers, insomniacs, and anyone craving comfort could find it. 24/7. No questions asked. Diners were not fancy, but they were honest. Or at least they used to be. Somewhere along the way, corporate greed, cost-cutting, and the race to expand faster than quality could keep up turned these beloved institutions into hollow shells. The booths might look the same. The menus might still promise home-style cooking and all-day breakfast. But what is happening behind those kitchen doors would make your grandmother weep into her apron. We are about to pull back the curtain on 5 legendary diner chains that are not what they used to be. And by the end of this, you might never look at a stack of pancakes or a plate of biscuits and gravy the same way again. Before we dig in, drop a comment and tell us your go-to diner growing up. Was it one of these 5? And if you are ready for the truth, hit that like button and subscribe, because we are serving up reality, and it is not getting microwaved. Let us start with the diner that never closes, never rests, and apparently never checks the expiration dates either. Denny's used to be America's living room at 3 in the morning, the place where night shift workers, road trippers, and insomniacs found refuge in greasy hash browns and bottomless coffee. It was not glamorous, but it was real. Somewhere between the 1980s and today, Denny's stopped being a diner and became a food factory with booths. Let us start with what you are actually eating. Former cooks have come forward, admitting that nearly everything on your plate arrives pre-cooked, frozen, or vacuum-sealed. Those fluffy scrambled eggs? Liquid poured from a carton. The pancakes in your Grand Slam? Pre-made and microwaved. Even the bacon, that crispy centerpiece of breakfast, is pre-cooked and just reheated on a flat top for appearance. One employee posted online, "We do not cook breakfast. We assemble it and hope you do not notice." And it is not just the food prep that should concern you. It is the sanitation, or lack of it. Health inspection reports from Denny's locations across multiple states have cited dirty coffee pots left overnight, syrup dispensers caked with residue and mold, and food stored at improper temperatures. The coffee, once the pride of any self-respecting diner, has become a cruel joke. Denny's now serves bottom-tier beans that taste like burnt regret mixed with dishwater. Former servers have admitted the pots sit on burners for hours, sometimes reheated multiple times throughout a shift. One customer review simply read, "This coffee tastes like it apologized for existing." Another said, "I have had better coffee at a gas station in the middle of nowhere, and that is saying something." Then, there are the viral photos. A customer in Florida posted a picture of their over-easy eggs that came out gray and rubbery, with yolks so overcooked they crumbled like chalk. The caption just said, "I ordered eggs, not a science experiment." Another diner shared a photo of pancakes so dense and gummy they folded in half without breaking. But here is the real kicker. Being open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, sounds convenient. In reality, it is a recipe for disaster. Overnight shifts are understaffed, rushed, and running on fumes. Quality control disappears faster than your appetite when you see what is actually in that skillet. Workers are exhausted, corners get cut, and by 4 in the morning, nobody is checking if the hash browns have been sitting out too long or if the grill has been cleaned since yesterday. Prices have climbed steadily over the years, while portions have shrunk and quality has nosedived. You are paying more for less, and what you are getting is not even close to what Denny's used to serve. The only thing still unlimited at Denny's is the disappointment. And if your childhood memories are tied to a booth at Denny's, you might want to keep them as memories, because the reality today will ruin them. Now let us move to another breakfast giant that promised fluffy stacks and delivered something closer to regret on a plate. IHOP built an empire on one simple promise: the best pancakes in America. Fluffy, buttery stacks that made Sunday mornings worth waking up for. Generations of families crowded into booths for those signature pancakes, believing they were getting something special. But today's IHOP pancakes have more in common with cafeteria food than breakfast heaven. Let us talk about what actually goes into those pancakes. The original recipe that made IHOP famous has been quietly swapped out for something cheaper, faster, and far less impressive. Former employees have revealed that the batter now comes pre-mixed in massive industrial containers, and it does not get made fresh throughout the day. That batter can sit for hours, sometimes even overnight, slowly losing any chance it had at being fluffy or flavorful. The process itself is depressing. Pancakes are made in huge batches during morning prep and left sitting under heat lamps, slowly transforming from soft to dense, from golden to rubbery. A customer in Ohio posted a video cutting into their pancake stack. The knife barely went through. The texture was so dense it bounced back like a sponge. One commenter wrote, "That is not a pancake, that is a weapon." Another said, "I have seen fluffier bricks." And that syrup on your table? It is not maple syrup, despite the little cabin imagery and the word buttery thrown around on the menu. It is corn syrup, mixed with artificial flavoring, coloring, and enough sugar to make your teeth ache just looking at it. Real maple syrup costs money. IHOP would rather serve you flavored sugar water and hope the nostalgia blinds you to the difference. But it gets worse. IHOP has been on a mission to be everything to everyone, and in doing so, they have become mediocre at all of it. Burgers, chicken sandwiches, pasta, international fusion nonsense. The menu has exploded while the kitchen quality has imploded. They are trying to compete with every restaurant category and failing at breakfast, the one thing they were supposed to master. When you stretch your identity that thin, nothing gets done right. The griddles that should be dedicated to pancakes are now covered in burger grease. Cross-contamination is not just possible, it is inevitable. Health inspections have not been kind either. Multiple IHOP locations have been cited for improper food temperatures, dirty griddles with caked-on residue, and cross-contamination between breakfast and lunch items. One inspection report in Texas noted that pancake batter was stored next to raw chicken, with no barrier between them. That is not fusion cuisine. That is a salmonella audition. Even the butter is not butter. That little cup of yellow spread on your table is margarine blend, cheap and tasteless. The eggs are not cracked fresh, they are poured from jugs of liquid premix. The fresh fruit toppings advertised in those glossy menu photos, canned or reconstituted from syrup, nothing about your breakfast is as fresh or homemade as the marketing wants you to believe. Customers who grew up loving IHOP are finally noticing. Reviews describe undercooked centers, burnt edges, batter that tastes like nothing, and service that has gone from friendly to frantic. The booths are torn, the tables are sticky, and the servers look like they have given up hope along with the pancakes. The only thing international about IHOP anymore is the universal disappointment. Next up is a Southern legend that has always been rough around the edges, but lately it has gone from charmingly gritty to genuinely concerning. Waffle House has always been rough around the edges. That was part of its charm. The grease-stained menus, the jukebox in the corner, the cooks yelling orders across an open kitchen while flipping hash browns with one hand. It was raw, it was real, and it stayed open even when hurricanes shut down entire cities. But there is a difference between dive diner aesthetic and legitimate health hazards. And lately, Waffle House has been crossing that line more often than anyone wants to admit. Let us start with the sanitation issues that keep piling up. Health inspection reports from Waffle House locations across the South read like horror stories. Rodent droppings found near food prep areas. Employees failing to wash hands between handling raw meat and cooked eggs. Food stored at dangerous temperatures for hours on end. Then there are the viral videos. And trust us, you cannot unsee them. One clip from a late-night shift showed a cook dropping a waffle on the floor, picking it up, and putting it right back on the plate. No hesitation. No second thought. Just floor waffles served with a smile. Another video captured a worker handling raw bacon with bare hands, then immediately touching cooked hash browns without washing or changing gloves. The comments section exploded. One person wrote, "I just canceled my Waffle House plans forever." Another said, "That is not scattered and smothered, that is contaminated and covered up." Staff turnover at Waffle House is notoriously high, and that creates a dangerous cycle. Undertrained workers are thrown onto the line with barely any instruction. Mistakes multiply, standards vanish. A customer in Tennessee posted a photo of their eggs that came out with visible shell fragments mixed in. Another found a long black hair coiled inside their waffle. The restaurant's response was to offer a replacement, as if that fixes the deeper problem. And let us talk about what happens after midnight. Waffle House markets itself as the place that never closes, the safe haven for night owls and third-shift workers. But the overnight hours are when everything falls apart. Fewer staff members on duty means more corners cut, more rules ignored, more food sitting out longer than it should. One former night shift cook admitted, "After 2 a.m., we stop caring about temperature logs. We just want to survive until morning." The chaos is not just in the kitchen. Waffle House has become infamous for in-store fights, brawls that spill into the parking lot, and an overall environment that sometimes feels more dangerous than welcoming. Viral videos of customers throwing chairs and employees getting into physical altercations have turned Waffle House into a meme, but the reality is far less funny when you are just trying to eat hash browns in peace. Prices have crept up too. What used to be dirt-cheap comfort food now costs nearly as much as sit-down restaurants with actual standards. You are paying more for declining quality, shrinking portions, and an experience that feels less like Southern hospitality and more like survival of the fittest. The only thing still scattered and smothered is basic food safety. But if you think Waffle House has issues, wait until you hear what is hiding behind the rocking chairs and country charm of the next chain on our list. Cracker Barrel sells nostalgia harder than any chain in America. The rocking chairs out front, the country store filled with overpriced trinkets, the promises of home-style cooking just like Grandma made it. Walk inside and you are supposed to feel like you have stepped back in time to a simpler era when food was made with care and love. But Grandma never used industrial microwaves and frozen food suppliers from corporate warehouses 2 states away. Let us be clear about what homestyle actually means at Cracker Barrel. It does not mean scratch cooking. It does not mean fresh ingredients lovingly prepared by someone who cares. It means reheating prepackaged, factory-made food and arranging it on a plate to look rustic. Former employees have exposed the truth all over social media, and it is not pretty. The meatloaf arrives frozen in plastic-wrapped bricks. The mac and cheese comes in bags that get boiled and dumped into serving dishes. Even the biscuits, those golden symbols of Southern comfort, are par-baked at a factory and just finished on site to create the illusion of freshness. One of the most heartbreaking revelations involves the chicken and dumplings, a signature dish that should be slow-cooked, tender, and soul-warming. At Cracker Barrel, it arrives in plastic pouches, gets microwaved, and is served with a smile and a story about tradition. A former cook uploaded a video showing the process. Rip open pouch, microwave for several minutes, pour into bowl. Garnish with a parsley flake if you are feeling fancy. One commenter wrote, "My grandma is rolling in her grave so fast she could power a small city." Health inspections tell an even uglier story. Multiple Cracker Barrel locations have been cited for holding food at improper temperatures, using expired ingredients, and maintaining poor cleaning protocols. One report from a North Carolina location noted that gravy was being kept in a warming container that had visible mold growth around the edges. Another inspection found chicken stored above the safe temperature threshold for over 2 hours. That is not homestyle. That is a health code violation dressed up in gingham curtains. And let us talk about the country store for a second. That cluttered maze of candles, toys, and seasonal knickknacks is not just charming decor. It is a profit engine. Cracker Barrel makes more money per square foot on overpriced nostalgia trinkets than they do on actual meals. They know the food quality is slipping, so they distract you with jars of old-fashioned candy and wooden rocking chairs you will never actually buy. It is retail therapy to mask culinary disappointment. The breakfast menu, once a reliable refuge for hearty morning meals, has declined just as much. Pancakes are made from pre-mixed batter that sits in containers for hours. Eggs are poured from cartons of liquid yellow goo. The bacon is pre-cooked and reheated, losing any crisp it might have once had. One customer described their Cracker Barrel breakfast as eating a memory of food, not actual food. Another review said, "I paid $15 to feel sad about my childhood." Portions have shrunk while prices have climbed. Longtime customers who used to visit weekly have noticed the decline and finally given up. The atmosphere, no matter how many wooden signs and antique farm tools are nailed to the walls, cannot hide cold food, slow service, and obvious cost-cutting. The only thing authentic at Cracker Barrel is the authentically high prices. And if you thought Cracker Barrel was faking the farm-to-table fantasy, wait until you hear about the chain that literally built its entire brand on farm-fresh promises and delivered frozen disappointment instead. Bob Evans built his brand on farm-to-table before it was trendy. Real sausage, real eggs, real country cooking from a real Ohio farm. The restaurants opened in the 1960s with a simple promise: what you eat here comes from our farm. Made the way farm families have always made it. For decades, people believed that promise. But today's Bob Evans is about as farm fresh as a frozen TV dinner, and the only thing getting harvested is your money. Here is what most people do not know. Bob Evans restaurants no longer source ingredients from Bob Evans farms in any meaningful way. The farm still exists, sure, but it is mostly a branding tool now, a story to tell while serving you food that came from massive industrial suppliers hundreds of miles away. The sausage that made the chain famous, the very product that started it all, tastes noticeably different than it did 20 or 30 years ago. Longtime customers have been complaining for years. The seasoning is off. The texture is wrong. It does not taste like the sausage their parents used to bring home from the actual farm. Former kitchen staff have pulled back the curtain on what really happens behind those homey wooden signs and cheerful server aprons. The sausage patties arrive frozen and pre-formed, not hand-rolled or seasoned on-site. The gravy, that thick savory blanket that is supposed to come from pan drippings and slow simmering, is made from powder mixed with water. One employee posted a photo of the gravy base, a giant container labeled with instructions that read like a science experiment. Add water, stir, heat, serve. That is not country cooking. That is a chemistry class with lower standards. The biscuits, another cornerstone of the Bob Evans breakfast experience, do not come from scratch either. They arrive in tubes, pre-formed and ready to bake. Pop them in the oven, wait a few minutes, and pretend they were lovingly kneaded by someone's grandmother. A customer once described the biscuits as tasting like salted cardboard that gave up halfway through rising. Another review said, "I have had better biscuits from a can at the grocery store, and those cost $1. Is less than #0. 5 is greater than." Let us talk about the breakfast platters, the ones advertised with golden eggs, crispy hash browns, and thick-cut bacon. What you actually get is a plate of reheated components. The eggs are poured from jugs of liquid mix. The hash browns are frozen shreds dumped onto a flat top. The bacon is pre-cooked and warmed up just enough to avoid being cold. Nothing is made from scratch. Nothing is fresh. It is assembly line breakfast with a farm logo slapped on top to make you feel warm and fuzzy inside. The menu has also expanded in confusing directions. Sandwiches, salads, dinner entrees that have no business being at a breakfast-focused restaurant. And just like IHOP, the more Bob Evans tries to be everything, the worse they get at their core identity. The kitchen is stretched too thin. Quality control disappears. And what you end up with is mediocrity across the board. The breakfast suffers because half the grill is covered in burger patties. The lunch suffers because nobody trained for this expected to be flipping turkey clubs at a place called Bob Evans. And then there are the pies. Bob Evans pies used to be legendary. Dense, sweet, made with care, the kind of dessert that justified the entire meal. Now, they arrive frozen from commissaries, baked on site, and served with the hope that you will not notice they taste exactly like every other chain restaurant pie. One customer wrote, "This banana cream pie tastes like it was made by a committee, not a baker. The crust is bland, the filling is gummy, the whipped topping tastes like it came from a can that expired last year." So where does that leave us? How do you move forward knowing that the diners you trusted have betrayed that trust? That answer is coming. But first, you need to understand just how much is at stake. Remember at the beginning when we asked if you remembered what diner food used to mean? Hot coffee, honest meals, and a place that felt like it actually cared whether you left satisfied? That version is not coming back. These chains had their chance to evolve without sacrificing quality, and they chose profit over everything else. Your nostalgia is real, your memories are valid, but the diners serving you today are hollow imitations trading on a reputation they no longer deserve. The truth is uncomfortable, but it is necessary. Denny's, IHOP, Waffle House, Cracker Barrel, Bob Evans. All of them have abandoned the values that made them successful in the first place. Frozen food passed off as fresh, microwaved meals marketed as home-style, health violations ignored in the name of speed and cost savings, employees pushed beyond their limits while corporate executives collect bonuses. This is not what diners were supposed to be. This is what happens when Wall Street takes over Main Street. So, what do you do now? You trust your instincts. If the food tastes off, if the restaurant feels dirty, if something does not sit right, listen to that voice. Your gut is smarter than their marketing department. There are still good diners out there, independent places run by people who care, local spots where the food is actually made from scratch and the staff takes pride in what they serve. Those places deserve your business. These corporate chains do not. The diner you remember does not exist anymore. It is just a logo on a building, serving factory food and hoping you will not notice the difference. But now you know, and you cannot unknow it. If this video opened your eyes, hit that like button, subscribe so you never miss the truth about your favorite chains, and drop a comment telling us which restaurant shocked you the most or if you have ever had a nightmare experience at one of these places. Share this with someone who still thinks their local diner is the same as it was 20 years ago, because the truth is not always on the menu, but it is always worth serving.